wanna know his secret?
Hey guys, what's up? It's me, Captain from the Tech Feed, and welcome to another episode of the Coding of the Interwebs. And today we're going to be learning more about JavaScript. So last episode we learned some, basic stuff, but today we're gonna be learning some fundamentals. So let's start off our script tags, and inside of here we can start off writing our JavaScript code. So first off, we learned this inside the last episode. Document.write will print something to the screen, so like hello. And remember, no semicolons are required inside of JavaScript. You can put them in if you want to, and refresh. So now you get hello, which is really cool. Now this is good and all, but what if you want to give yourself some kind of debugging messages that an average user will not see on your page? So you're testing something out, and just debug something if you have an error. You don't want to show it out to the user. Well, you can use console.log, and inside here you can put in hello or whatever error message you have, and here you can refresh and you'll see that, wait, what happened? There's nothing there. If you go into inspect element and then you go here to console, you'll see that you have the hello printed out here, since we said console.log out hello. Now as you see here, this is all really complicated because even standard things like printing stuff out of the screen is really long. So you can imagine doing more advanced things are kind of confusing. So to be able to do more advanced things, I recommend using jQuery. It makes almost everything a whole lot easier. So you want to go to jQuery.com, which as you can see I've already went to. And so jQuery.com, you want to click on download jQuery, this big button here. You want to download the compressed production jQuery, click copy link address. Now once you have that closed, you can open up your thing here again, and what you want to do inside your head tags here, you want to do a script source, and inside of here you want to put in that URL that you just copied. So this is gonna let us use jQuery inside our page. So here's just some more JavaScript fundamentals. So functions are declared using the function keyword. So function, and then function name, which will be hello, which will document.write hello out to the screen. And then when we go here and we refresh, and oh well, we forgot to call it, so we'll call that right now using the same way in PHP as in hello, like that, and refresh. And if we give it a couple of seconds and we let it refresh, we get the hello here. So that's awesome. And so this is just basic JavaScript stuff. And one last thing, variables and arrays. So variables you declare with var, with the keyword var. Now before you used to use var, but what var does is it creates a variable inside of a global scope, which means if inside of a function you have a variable of the same name, it will get messed up. So it's not recommended to use var anymore, because we no longer use it because it's old syntax, because you can interfere with other code inside of other libraries that you're using. So if inside of here if I created var hello, and then equals 0 for example, and then over here if they're also using var hello inside of jQuery, that would mess everything up for them. So you don't really want to use var. Instead what you use now is use let, which what let does is it creates a variable, but it only creates it inside the current scope. So since we're using let inside of these script tags, only inside of these script tags it will create the variable, and only inside of there will it be useful. If we create a function here and we create this we'll just leave the name the default, and in here if we did var hello equals 0, and then then if we just did var hello equals 0, and then we did document.write var, and then not var hello, document.write hello, and then if we went down here and we created var hello and we set it equal to 1, and well so then when you ran this, it would print out hello, which it would print out 1, which would be very confusing and you probably don't want to happen. So if we just refresh this, so variables, almost always you want to use let. Always use let. Let hello equal 0. Well, you don't need the semicolon there. And document dot write hello, right? So now when you refresh this, you see we have our variable. If you give it a couple of seconds, it waits for jQuery because the internet on this machine is pretty slow. Here we have 0, right? Because we got 0 because we set it equal to 0 right here. So that's cool. Let works, and it's the same variable. Now arrays inside of here are let array or whatever you want to call your variable, and you just use square brackets and then separate your values with commas, right? So that's how you do arrays inside of JavaScript. So that's pretty cool. So now we have some basic stuff done. So now what about some simple like buttons and doing something when a button is pressed. Now inside of PHP, when you deal with form handling like I taught earlier, what will happen is that once you click the button, the page will refresh and then it will process the PHP, because as I said in an earlier episode, PHP versus JavaScript, PHP is server side, so it only runs when the page is loaded. So, but however JavaScript is client side, so it will run at all times. So what we want to do is we probably want to do an input and, well, button actually. Let's make a button. We could use either one, but let's just use button. Type button, name, doesn't matter. Instead we'll give this a class, but not yet. So for now we'll just do an on click. There's this on click attribute, and over here you can specify a JavaScript function name. So we can do on click and we want to execute a function. So this function will be called when click, okay? So this will be our function name, when click, okay? So now here we'll declare a function, and this will be when click. And down here what we will do is when click we'll just do document dot write, and we'll do just a simple hello, okay? So document dot write hello. Okay, so now let's refresh and we have our button. We should probably put something inside of it, so like something like press me, and put an exclamation mark in there because why not? And when we refresh this, we have our press me button, and when you click that, it prints out hello. Now that's cool and all, but the problem with on click is that when you click on it, the button kind of disappears. So that's cool and all, but let's try doing this something cooler. So that's cool, but now we can use jQuery and do other stuff. So now that isn't really recommended, and it's not the best practice ever, and it's not really used that often. So instead, what it's better to do is to do this. What most people do instead is you do a button, and let's just create ourselves another button, type button, and instead of giving a name again, we'll give it a class. And for our class, we'll set that class equal to my button, okay? And so now here what we can do, since we have jQuery, we can use the $, document dot ready $, document, and inside parentheses you put in your document, and then dot ready is what you want, and then you want inside of here you want to type in function, which will create a what's known as a anonymous function, or a function with no name, and I'll explain to you in a second why this is useful in this case. Now here you could either put in a function, you could either declare a function up top and then put in the function name in here, and that would work. It's just that you probably won't use that function anywhere else inside your code. So instead you can create a function with no name here, which is basically what we're doing here. You'll see there's no name here. So, and that function can only be used once. You cannot call this function again, but we only need it once. So after you use it this one time, it disappears. So document.ready, what this does is it basically says when the page is finished loading, then what we want to do is we want to wait for $, and then here what you do is inside of here, like instead of CSS, when you're using a class you use dot, and then when you're using an ID you use hashtag. Same thing here. So you do dot my button. If we were using IDs, we'd use hashtag instead of dot. So here that we finished this here, and we have class my button and my button here. Now you need a dot here saying that what do we want to do this? We want on, which will listen to when a certain event occurs. So here inside of here you want on what? On what do you want this to occur? So on click is when we want this to occur. Now document my button dot on click, and then what do we want to happen? So here again we are going to use another anonymous function. Again, you could pass in a function name, but since you probably won't use that function more than once, here we can just use this. So here we can use the same document dot write, and here we'll just be like hello. So in the end, so now let's just do press me. So now in the end we did just about the same thing, but this time without having to give it an actual a on click attribute, because usually almost everything on your web page will have a class. So this is a really easy way to do it. So when we refresh this page, resolving host, waiting for it. Okay, so now on the press me we get a hello again, which is exactly what we were expecting. Now that's cool and all, but what if you want to set, instead of doing this, you see when we do this, this button gets overridden when we do the document.write on it. What we could do instead is we could create a div down here, and we'll give it, wait, do I have, no, I do not have that add-on installed. Okay, so we'll just create a div, and here we'll give it the class of output. Okay, so this will just be our output div, and what we'll do is instead of putting what happens after pressing the button on the screen, which will override everything that's on the screen, instead we'll put it inside of this div element here that's empty. We can put it inside the div element, and that way it will show up inside the screen without overriding the button. And of course, let's put a line break here, so that everything else is on the next line. Okay, so now what we need to do is, instead of doing this, we can do another we'll do another dollar sign. Inside of here we'll do dot, well, inside of quotes, dot output like so, and then dot, and then on this class output, what do you want? We want dot html. And what this will do is we can set the HTML inside of here. So we can set the HTML code to be hello, what's inside of the div. So this is the same thing as typing in hello in here, except we're doing this programmatically when the button is clicked. So when we refresh this, you see we get hello put into the div. And if we refresh this and we look at our page's source, or actually no, let's do Control U. So here we can see our entire source. So here right now this div is empty and it says press me here, and of course you see all of our JavaScript code. That's one of the downsides of JavaScript. Everyone can see all your JavaScript code while no one can see your PHP stuff. So now when we do hello and we do a Control U on this, as you can see, well, it doesn't show up here, but what we're basically doing is putting HTML saying hello inside of there, which is really cool. Now you can also do things like put actual like HTML tags inside of there, for example. So we can do the for example, we can give it a, what's a good example, let's say a HR tag, right? So like the HR tag, which stands for horizontal rule, and all that does is makes a line across the screen like this, and a horizontal line. When you refresh and you press this, as you can see, a horizontal line shows up, which is really cool. So you can do stuff like this quite easily with jQuery. Now remember, this HTML will not work if you're not using jQuery, and make sure you use jQuery before complaining that none of these examples work for you. And the beauty of JavaScript is, since it's client side, you don't need a server like XAMPP, which I taught you how to install in some earlier tutorials. You don't need that in order to run your JavaScript. So that's pretty cool. So I think we've gone over some of the basic principles of JavaScript and jQuery. So inside the next episode, we'll probably be doing some cooler stuff, and with both JavaScript or PHP. I haven't decided yet, but we're going to be doing some really nice stuff. Maybe might even throw in some cool CSS inside of there. But until next time, never ever cut the feed of tech. Wow.